good time, and we're going to start the work session for October the 9th. We usually start out with citizen comments. I don't have any speaker cards for citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda, and so we'll move right on. I need to give you the game plan tonight. I want to get through item 8 by at least by 6 o'clock. I intend to start item 9 promptly at 6 o'clock. So if you can gauge your comments, that would help for us to get through all these other items. And so with that said, we'll start out with Battlefield Preservation Commission Visioning Plan Update.
Thank you, everybody. It's good to be here. Let's start off with the visioning plan methodology. Oh, they want me to introduce myself. Pam Lewis, and I'd rather be on this side than on that side, so having been there. So anyway, sorry. And of course, you know Amanda.
Pam is the chair of the Battlefield Preservation Commission.
Yes. Okay, so we were going to start with the visioning plan methodology. We worked with Phil Walker, who's a nationally recognized preservationist. He also worked with the Heritage Foundation on our Battlefield Preservation Plan, and I believe also worked with Jim on the Gallatin Downtown Master Plan and Streetscape. So he worked with us. We were there several hours, and we put together a game plan, and also worked on our past, pulling together our past accomplishments and our future challenges. Some of the things that we've done thus far have been raising money for the gun carriages around the square. We have also worked with a city cemetery with ground penetrating radar, done various improvements in Rest Haven and the city cemetery, and worked on getting all of our historic cemeteries on the National Register. We also have set up 4 committees that we're working on now that will work, I think, much more effectively, and we'll start doing, as the mayor has asked, for regular updates for this committee. You guys have known about this, I think, a lot of you, but we started off as a task force back in the early 2000s, and that was when we were doing land identification of battlefield land. We also were working on, when the eastern flank was purchased, the roadway going through the eastern flank. We also used to do the illumination. That now has been taken over by the Battle of the Franklin Trust. So we've sort of morphed, which is why now it's a commission, and we sort of changed our purpose, and the city has also had a bigger role now in preservation than initially. So we felt it was time to sort of adapt what we've been doing to more reflect where Franklin is right now. Are you going to say anything, or am I going to talk?
So as part of the visioning plan that we worked on in January, we did establish the 4 subcommittees to help define action task for the commission. So I will cover that here shortly, what those 4 subcommittees are and those action items associated with those. We also have adopted a bi-monthly meeting schedule with subcommittees meeting regularly in between. And we have a proposal of ordinance amendments that's related to the commission name, its purpose, and its membership structure. And so Pam will cover a little bit more about the proposed name and purpose statement. So right now we're the Battlefield Preservation Commission, and
well, in talking with our commission, and really Alma McLemore kind of spearheaded this, and she felt that we needed to have a broader name that was not just reflective of battlefield. So we came up, after much discussion, with the Franklin Civil War Historical Commission. We would like to adopt that name if it's something that you all feel good about.
And part of the reason for that, too, is battlefield preservation, while it's a goal of the city and a goal of a lot of the nonprofits in our community, it's very limiting in the name. It doesn't describe exactly what this commission does in terms of identifying, helping preserve, and interpret our historic park sites as related to Civil War sites, as well as projects similar to what you've seen currently with interpretation of some Civil War sites outside of our parks.
Really, it's an effort for us to be more inclusive.
All right, so the 4 subcommittees we've established as part of the visioning plan. One is the historic cemeteries. We do have Toussaint L'Ouverture is a historic cemetery that we help interpret in terms of our cell phone tour, but primarily, we work with the Parks Department to provide prioritization of needs for the cemeteries, to assess where those needs are. There are a lot of needs for both City Cemetery and Rest Haven Cemetery. We've developed a preservation and maintenance plan to address some of those issues. One thing that we're hoping to do with the Parks Department is further our goal of developing a volunteer group to help with cleaning of the burial markers. That would be a routine, systematic approach to that would help us address something that's really very much needed. A lot of those stones are very much degraded with biological growth and can't be readily seen. So we'd like to clear those up so that the community can engage those. We also plan to work on additional signage for interpretation for the cemeteries and update the Parks audio tour as needed to address more things as we find out more research about the cemeteries and to St. Louisure as well. The second is wayfinding signage. This group has already been off and running a little bit. We have evaluated the condition of existing signage. We have Dr. Gant in the audience who did a lot of that work, and we are very grateful to him. And evaluating the optimal placement for new signage, existing signage as well. We've grown a lot as a community, and we want to be able to help get our tourists and our citizens to the right places and make sure that we're addressing the proper locations as our road system grows and changes. Work on additional signage as needed, and to update the Parks audio tour and enhance wayfinding for stronger links to downtown. There are both physical and digital means by which to enhance linkages and connections for wayfinding, so we'd like to explore all those options. And ultimately have greater cohesiveness in design and visual consistency for all those signs, because that gives people who aren't exactly sure where they're going a little bit more confidence in that they're going to the right place.
We don't want people to waste their time trying to find places. We want them to be able to park and enjoy our city. And so we've had some feedback of confusion and redundancy, and so we're trying to clear all that up and working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau as well. And maybe even get some additional signage. I talked to Dr. Moore about off of the interstate, so that we direct people so they know it's a short jaunt from the interstate into downtown Franklin.
Okay, one of the other subcommittees would be interpretation. As part of interpretation, we'd like to explore themes such as Reconstruction, the USCT troops, the United States Color Troops, Freedmen's Bureau, the Third Battle of Franklin. The Battle of Franklin you hear about most is the Second Battle of Franklin, but there are also a first and a third, and we'd like to look into those as well. Assist with the development of interpretation of Roper's Knob, which is a very integral part of that Second Battle of Franklin. Also look at interpretation of Civil War sites outside of the park system through sign placement, update the parks audio tour as needed, and assist with the Parks Department with developing a donation policy, which we've already been working on. All right, the final subcommittee that we have developed is public outreach and education. We've worked a lot on that as nonprofit groups make up the majority of the Battlefield Preservation Commission membership list. We'd like to work to enhance our social media presence and provide more information to the community about our Civil War sites. Work with Parks Department to develop some battlefield cleanup days to get primarily the youth more involved in knowing more about their community and in investing time and in learning more about why those places are special and should be preserved and maintained. Develop educational programs with our school system. We do have someone on the Franklin Special School District, Tim Stillings, on the board, and we're hoping to work with him to develop a better partnership with educational programs with our schools, civic organizations, perhaps Boys and Girls Clubs, some youth groups, YMCA, retirement communities, et cetera, so we can get more people out looking at the parks and enjoying the beautiful fruits of the community's labor in preserving and maintaining these sites. And last but not least, work with the city to offer lecture series and host community conversations about this topic, because as you know, it's become increasingly more important to have discussions related to the Civil War and understanding the implications and just learning from each other. Mm-hmm. So we are happy to answer any questions, especially as related to the proposed name change. We're thrilled to move forward with this if it's, you know.
This is a really big active commission, and people, we moved the meeting to 8 o'clock, but really pleased to have Alderman Speedy representing us now. So, if
Vice
anybody has
Mayor.
any questions.
Vice Mayor has a question.
I'd like to go back to the cemeteries.
Sure.
You have listed three. How did you come up with just those?
Well, the city owns and maintains Rest Haven Cemetery and City Cemetery. And Toussaint L'Ouverture Cemetery is the sister cemetery of sorts to Rest Haven, right across the street from there. There are obviously way more, historic cemeteries in our community. We're able to be effective with the ones that we own, of course, and we can partner with the owners of Toussaint to help address that story as well. We're trying to address cities or historic cemeteries with Civil War ties, as that's the role of this commission to focus on interpretation as related to the Civil War era.
Okay, but there are, I know of one other that I've talked with you about, the Graffenried up on Mount Hope Street. And that is usually a mess. And I'd like for us to look into that, since it's right smack in the middle of town, and every child that goes to Freedom Middle and Freedom Intermediate goes right by that school.
Yes.
By that cemetery.
That was the one I think I called you about,
Yes.
too. There was some problem with the wall around it, and I think that's been repaired now.
Well, it has not been repaired, but
No?
work has been done.
Okay.
And a load of things have been removed. So we don't need to get into that now, but anyway, I just want to mention that would be one place to start,
Okay.
to
Well, thank you
add
for
to that maybe.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, ready to move on?
So what areas do you cover? If it's the battlefield preservation, which is not now, what specific geographical area are you looking?
We haven't defined a specific geographical area, but it's really more related to providing guidance to the board and to administration on items as related to Civil War history in our community. So it could cover a larger geographical range, but the commission has prioritized Rest Haven and City Cemetery as they have direct Civil War linkages, and they're owned by the city of Franklin.
Okay, thank you. Great report.
you.
Thank
Next
you.
is, we'll look forward to your update.
Thank you,
Next
Mr. Mayor.
is event permit for Pumpkin Fest. Any questions about that? If not, we'll move on to items 3 and 4, which has to do with rezoning 19.83 acres from general commercial to specific developmental variety, SDX 16.79, for property located north of Liberty Pike and west of Crothers Parkway, and then also a development plan for the same property.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep it brief. The ordinance is to rezone 19.83 acres from general commercial to specific development variety. Planning Commission and staff both recommended approval. Envision Franklin places this parcel in a regional commerce design concept. Envision Franklin supports commercial, office, and multifamily residential uses in a mixed-use setting where multifamily residential incorporates activated ground floor spaces. Staff has found that the rezoning and development plan are consistent with Envision Franklin and therefore recommend approval.
Questions? Item 5, consideration City of Franklin Contract 2018-0134 for professional services agreement with Town Planning and Urban Design Collaborative for planning and zoning services for the Franklin zoning ordinance in the amount of $136,680.
We conducted an RFQ and interviewed 4 firms out of 5 that were submitted to the city, and selected TPUDC as a firm to help us do QA/QC, to develop a public outreach program and lead all of the meetings and do the meeting facilitation and develop some great graphics for us. So we recommend approval of them. They're great.
I do want to know that staff is really leading the writing of the zoning ordinance. This is a kind of an ancillary support, important and helpful in certain topic areas and the areas that Kelly described, but our staff is really doing the bulk of the work to write the updated zoning ordinance as it better connects to Envision Franklin.
Thanks for all the questions. Item
Oh, wait,
6.
Excuse me, did you ask more questions? I'm ready.
Alderman Peterson, you usually have your hand up 10 minutes before I'm ready, but you go ahead.
I noticed that one of the things says meeting with stakeholders and think tanks. Are those also going to be public meetings that are announced ahead of time?
We'll be working with them to develop the public outreach program. That's one of the next steps.
But if you remember, in some other cases, we have had private meetings with certain groups that were not known, that were not announced to the public.
We have met with stakeholders, but we will develop a full public outreach program as part of
But
this.
I'm just saying, I want to know, is it possible for us to know when all the meetings are going to be held?
Yes, we can do that.
That is important to me. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, item 6, thank you. Consideration of amendment number 1 to the City of Franklin Contract 2016-0265 with the State of Tennessee for the Clean Energy Grant to extend the contract end date to August 31st, 2020.
So briefly, we applied for a grant as part of the new wastewater plant construction. This is, as the mayor was saying, clean energy, so it's related to the combined heat and power engine that we intend on purchasing. That'll take, that engine will take some of the power that's, the biogas that's pulled off of the digesters and convert that back into green electricity. So we've received a grant. This is simply an amendment to extend the time frame because, as you all know, we had a little bit trouble bidding this and we've missed the initial grant time frame. So we, still the $250,000, just a little bit later.
No problem.
Nope.
Great report.
Take the grant money.
Okay, next is item 7, consideration of draft resolution 2018-87, a resolution to approve an access management plan as the preferred design concept for the Columbia Avenue widening and improvements project.
So one of the elements, we've had a number of discussions about Columbia Avenue and design concepts and wanted to bring this back to you over the last month or so. Staff has met with individual property owners and reviewed access management options and did their best to work through specific concerns on each of those. We have also incorporated a proposed stretches or segments of sidewalk on the east side. That came out of your direction at the last meeting, so staff took a look at where that could be accommodated in our opinion and wanted to share that with you as well. So Paul will walk you through all that and highlight key elements. There's probably a handful of areas where there's maybe specific issues in terms of decisions that we'll need to make that may be an engineering perspective versus requests from property owners, and then also review the sidewalk components. So, take it away.
So as Eric stated, and William, if you could get to the, I think it's the 3rd page there. We spent the last month and a half meeting with any and every property owner up and down the Columbia Avenue corridor. Got lots of good feedback from them. Where we could accommodate their access points, we absolutely did, and as Eric stated, we did our best to incorporate the sidewalk on the east side where we felt like it was very little impact to that property owner. And so I'll try to point that out as we go through it. And so what we're going to do is walk you through what the property owners, there's 2 exhibits. One is what shows exactly what the property owners requested. The next exhibit shows what staff is comfortable recommending from a as Eric stated, an engineering perspective. And so we tried to call out on the property owner exhibit specifically where and why we aren't in favor of it or recommending against it. And so we'll walk through that. So we're going to start at the north side and work our way south through the corridor. And if it's easier, I'll try to, I'll point to this back screen so that you all can see. So starting with the Donnie Cameron property here, we're not proposing to modify these 2 access points. We felt like they were far enough away from the intersection. We didn't have a major objection to it. It also helps his overall circulation. We did meet with the owner of this Tim's Market in Delhi. They would like to continue to have this access right there at Columbia Avenue. Our main two reasons for recommending against it is, it's our opinion that they have reasonable and reliable access off of the side street, which is James Avenue, so we would not recommend in favor of that access. The other concern that we have at a staff level is as people are trying to pull in, there's parking here and it's very narrow, so you have an immediate conflict point there of people trying to back out of their spaces and someone quickly trying to pull in. That is a safety concern for us, and it's just, the proximity to the intersection to us just makes us recommend that that access should be off the side street, and the main access to the business is also located off of the side street. So as we
Let me ask a question there. You know, are we taking some right of way from them? See, I didn't get a chance to ask that. Other places I
We're
know we
taking
are.
very little right away. Here, it does not appear that we're taking a lot of right away.
Okay.
We're taking very minimal right away.
That's what I thought.
And it just varies track to track, but in general, it's very, very little right away for most of the property owners as part of this project. As we continue south with the Napa, you can see they have this existing parking here, and they have parking along the side of their building. Again, the property owner here really wanted to maintain this access to the front, just given its proximity. I don't know how we can feasibly do it unless we're willing to simply pave the entire frontage of the roadway with no access point. It would just be a paved access point is the only way. Again, backing out of those property and pulling in is a big concern to us. We've looked at the ability to be able to maneuver vehicles through there. It's tight, if not impossible to some degree, to be able to get those
If they're
vehicles in if they're parking. It's not feasible from our standpoint. Plus, it's our engineering judgment and recommendation that it's too close, and there is reasonable access off of the side street. But the property owner was adamant about keeping that parking.
So there's access off of James. There's a small access off of the extension of Downs, right?
That's right. So it's,
How would that be
Really?
used there?
so what we're proposing is to provide an additional access here at the signal so that vehicles could get access to the signal and get out safely if they chose to, or if they were coming into the site, they could simply loop around the building. There's a loading dock here, and there's one right there on the end, and then this here appears to be storage, from what I can tell from driving by the property. So yes, they would have this access point on the side road, and we feel that those two access points provide enough access for that business. And if we could accommodate the front access point, we would absolutely recommend in favor, but we just can't from an engineering standpoint.
So,
Mayor, do we want to, Mr. Cameron's wanting to know when he can talk, do we want to take it as we go by their property, or we wait till the end?
I think you made a good point.
Because while we're, that way we're not
I
gonna
think
forget.
we'll give Mr. Cameron 2 minutes after you finish this segment. Would that be
Yeah, I'm
appropriate?
done with his property, so if he'd like to join us,
Okay.
he's welcome to.
Mr. Cameron, we'll give you a couple of minutes. You're welcome to sit up here with us. Yeah, come on up and introduce yourself.
I'm Donnie Cameron, I'm officer there at 1503, and we met over there with Paul and Jonathan, and where he's talking about the access, that's loading, all that is loading on James Avenue. It's not parking for our businesses, for our business there, okay? So you can't park there, the customers can't park there and walk around, because if you go over there and look every day, there's,
Canopy.
you just can't do it. So if we could have that open.
can you
and-
point to that, Paul?
Mr. Cameron, you just push that button. You can-
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how to operate this.
Try
right.
that one.
Maybe the
On the one behind us, Donnie.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to do this. Anyway,
Paul, point that point.
I can do it.
yeah, okay. If we could leave that open and on the south side there, going in, coming out on that new street, the customers can get back to the red light right there, come out. You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying pull in there. but
Pull in
don't-
there.
But don't back out into the road.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
You can pull in there and you could go out on James, or if you're heading north, or you could come out right there if you wanna get to the red light and head back south.
So is that a right-in? What's preventing them from coming back out, Donnie?
Well, it's congested there, so the people, if they're heading back south, they're gonna wanna come to the red light to get out. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So if we leave it like that, they can get back to the red light to go south. Leave that open, and they can get to James to go back north, and they can go back to the red light to go back south. That's what we'd like to see happen.
So are all the green, it's showing sidewalks and or concrete, is that correct?
Yeah, and so for this property, there is no sidewalk proposed on that side just because of the impact it would have to those businesses. It shows a drive apron to really keep all that parking, you'd almost have to pave it all and just have one large access point. We show about a 24-foot access point there, but we've run vehicle turning movements through there, and it's next to impossible to be able to do it with vehicles parked there.
Well, the
is-
other
is
thing
what
I'm
we have
noticing
noticed.
is at the, if you look at where it says Napa at the bottom on the future public road, that, there's absolutely no way a car can navigate 360 degrees around that building.
No, there's not. And you have our existing, our proposed signal poles going right at that corner, and I can try to highlight that. This here is a proposed signal pole, that we need to have for the project, and then this grass area here is basically enough room, just enough room to put any signage that we need to have.
So how do they get to the new extension of the,
So, yes, in some of these properties, when you shift the access
Good
point, the
point, Ann.
businesses to some degree have to reconfigure some of their lot as part of that. And that's part of what happens at the appraisal process. We look at what damages and compensation need to go to accommodate those property owners. But yes, this here drive, we would figure out a way to get it tied in.
yeah, how do you get
Make
to
it-
it?
How do you get to it?
Yeah.
Well, you could pull in through Downs and make a left turn and circle the
Oh,
lot, or
okay,
you could
so
come
you
this
say
way.
circle the building?
You could circle the building,
Or
yes,
come
it
from
would.
James.
It would take some reconfiguration of how it currently operates. I'm not exactly 100% sure what that rear area is used for today.
Well, that rear is another business. It's a business, we've got a basement there, and it's another business in there, in the basement area.
But physically, we were not able to make the vehicles be able to work in that 24-foot drive
But
aisles.
that business is not, that's not a widely used business like Napa.
No,
You
it's
don't
not.
have, you don't have that many customers there.
No, you don't, Clyde, no, you don't.
And so
But-
how
But
mu-
the Napa, like I say, that's a loading dock on the side. You've been here all your life, you know what I'm talking about. Trucks come in and out there all the time. We need the front for our customers, and they can go, if they're going north, they can go to James and go that way, and if they're going north, they can cut through, they can go through the red light. They won't be pulling back on the street, you know what I'm saying? We-
So what is your request, Donnie?
My
Just so
request
we're clear.
is to leave it open like it is now, okay? And customers that are heading back north, they go right to James and go north, take a right. And customers going, south, excuse me, they're gonna come out at the red light right there, between the building, that little thing that's left open.
That future public road?
Correct.
So, Mr. Cameron, are you suggesting an entrance only where that red arrow is?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
front of the Napa?
Right,
building?
yeah, I mean, it's just an entrance only to get in there, and like I say, people going back north can come to James to go back out.
Well, you think they will. You think they will. They'll back out. I can promise you some of them.
Well, I mean, they're not gonna back out in traffic
They
on
won't go
Market.
Sure
south.
they will.
Huh?
They
They
do
won't,
now.
they won't back out and go south,
No.
because there's not enough room to back
Well, I
out
mean,
and
if
go south.
they can, Margaret, if they can turn around, back around and go back out, yeah, they will, but most of them are gonna go that way.
They wanna get out. We
They wanna get out.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't wait there.
yeah, that's what I'd do.
Got a lot of nuts out there.
I deal with them every day, trust me. Trust me, I deal with them every day.
Alderman Blanton.
Paul, and I'm no engineer, but is there any way to give a little bit more on the south part of that building so that people can maneuver around there? Like shift that future public road some? Cause they could diagonally park right there instead of park like this, and then they would be able to get to
Get to
that
Downs?
future road.
To get to Downs, is that what you're talking, the
Yeah.
extension to Downs?
Yeah, I mean, because I see all this green on the south side of that proposed intersection and a little bit there, if there's a little bit of give, so that a car could grab some clearance, then you could park diagonally, you wouldn't be worried about them backing out into the street.
Yeah, you'd have to shift it pretty far towards the
Okay.
south, which would instantly make us shift Downs Boulevard on the west side farther south onto the Harpeth Valley.
Okay,
So it's
got it.
it's a balancing act
You
of
got an alignment issue.
sticking with the existing alignment.
I said the same thing, Brandy, when we met over there that day. But I think we can work it like that. The more I've thought about it, I think we can work it like that, and it'll work fine for the business.
Can you, have you, Can you engineer something that strongly encourages somebody not to back out into the, okay?
No, we'd have to pay the entire frontage to keep that parking. I mean, literally, it would be one large driveway is the only option that we have. And we could show you the auto turn, the vehicle turning movements. It does not physically work with a 19-foot car.
Alderman Blanton?
I know, obviously I'm very passionate about this project, and this is just the first property owner, but the reason why we're even doing this is to make sure we accommodate these businesses. And the idea was so that we don't let them lose their frontage and their parking. And this is prime example of where we're trying to accommodate, and I understand staff has got to do what they think staff has got to do, but we also have to protect our business owners, and we're sitting here at the table together to work this out, so we need to figure out how to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I know we're looking at options, and I appreciate that. I'm just, it's a really difficult situation.
Agreed.
Well, I think this is a retail business too, that's very important to have the street frontage.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that's true, but we sit down on this one up here and put it right up against the street, where, you know, up on Columbia Avenue, put it right up against the street, so now you've got to go back into the back of the building to come into the back. So, you know, and that has nothing to do with your frontage here, but that doesn't have frontage up there across the HG Hills parking,
Yeah,
up there,
oh,
across
is
from that. We moved that thing out completely on the street and made people go around to the back, and then put up street lights that affect the neighbors across the street over there then, and then they've got the street lights over there, so.
Right, but his parking, the only place to find it is in the front, Clyde.
There's nowhere to park but in the front, Clyde.
That's his parking.
That is a parking.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to argue on that, I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. But when we say that frontage is super important, it is, but we've got other places where we've moved around and done something different. I would like to see, I don't know, I'd like to see us be able to use that and be able to pull in. If we could somehow or other work where we did not back out into the street, and you're not gonna back out and go south. That's about as simple, because you're too close to the red light, and you'd have to cross 2 or 3 lanes of traffic to get over to it. But you definitely could back out and go north.
Yeah, so to try to make something like that work, you're either losing laneage or you're shifting it farther to the west, the entire roadway,
Okay.
which is suddenly just gonna shift the problem onto Harpeth True Value. You know, you're either gonna reconfigure the lot and park on the side, and it does impact the business, I understand that, or you're gonna be shifting the entire roadway towards the west onto Harpeth True Value, which you're gonna get into their parking.
Yeah, well, we don't wanna
Or
do, we're not here to do that.
Or the other option is to simply lose laneage in the capacity.
No, we're not, I don't wanna hurt our neighbors, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to work this out, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, any other comments on this area? You got some guidance now? Do you feel
We
like?
got some feedback.
We got some
We got
feedback.
the feedback.
Yeah.
I don't know, we got guidance.
Guidance, feedback, thought process. Okay, well, let's continue on then.
Yeah, I got you.
Give 'em cell number?
Yep. I got
Okay.
it. Okay, come on up there.
Thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
Thank you.
We'll continue down the corridor.
Go across, what's that other one, Well,
Yeah, we got the Welton Investment. They've proposed a gas station and they're planning for some other type of building I'm unsure of. We negotiated that out through the development process. They're coming through the development plan process. They've agreed to have a right-in, right-out at this location and a full access point here that would line up with Harpeth True Values access point. And so they're in agreement with that as they look to redevelop. So that one, as far as we're concerned, as long as that redevelopment's taking place, has pretty much been worked out and agreed upon with the business owner.
okay, point to the access point, it's on Downs.
This is the access point. This one here would go away. This would be a combined access that would serve this rear gas station. And then this right in, right out here is ultimately what they would do. Based on their schedule, we anticipate them actually developing before we get to construction if they're continue to proceed.
Okay, and so where that yellow is striped there, that just means it's striped, it's not, any kind of median or anything, right?
Yeah, it's just striping.
Thank you.
Yep, it's all it is striping.
And the entrance to True Value there is a wider entrance than what is there today.
Mm-hmm.
at that, whatever, western entrance will be wider than what you see now.
So if we continue a little bit farther south, we can hit True Value, since we're talking about it, is, that we met with them as well. They seemed to be okay with the plan as is. They asked for a wider entrance here, as Eric stated, that'll help accommodate trucks. They were also okay with this shared entrance here, and this one would go away. They seem to be accepting of that plan. And then obviously with a future extension of Downs Boulevard or future roadway to be named, you know, that would serve the Kubota and C&F Tire. C&F Tire requested a right-in. We agreed to do the right-in. We didn't see that that was a major problem for the roadway, and an easy win for us to try to accommodate that business owner. The other thing they were concerned about was trucks sitting here. It'd be difficult to make this turning movement out to be able to activate the signal. And so we said, that's not a problem. We'll just set a loop in that road, in the driveway. And so if they have large delivery trucks, it can still trigger the signal, and they don't actually have to try to pull out and block traffic. So that one, very, very productive feedback, and we were happy that we were able to accommodate that business owner, and they seem to be satisfied. So as we continue farther to the south, we'll hit the TMA group. This is a driveway that serves this lot here. We didn't have any major objections with it, and of course they have a shared access point here with Moody's. It'd be a larger commercial type access point that would serve both facilities.
Well, tell me about that RS Development Group LLC. What's the in and out on that?
They didn't
Shared.
give us, it's a shared access point
With
here.
True Value.
With True Value.
Okay.
We didn't get a
I see.
firm commitment one way or the other, opposing or in favor of it. They seemed to understand, is the way I remember that meeting happening. But they didn't have any demands that we couldn't meet at this time. Looking at the Kubota, of course, they have an access point that's farther to the north. They've agreed, since we're building this roadway for, you know, them and multiple business owners through there, they agreed that that was okay to get rid of that it's dangerous. And what they asked for was a right in and a left in here. And a lot of their delivery vehicles or people coming to pick up feed or whatever else, this is where they come in and enter. We would work with him to put some curb up there to make it more protective, but as a right in only or a left in, we didn't have any major objections. So again, we were happy that we could accommodate that property owner with those improvements. As we continue farther to the,
right in, left in, where are they going from there then?
well, then they would circle in, pick up their material that they have in one of these buildings here. They have a little office here, and they could circle back out to the cul-de-sac into the light. His issue was, let's get them into the business, and once they're in, he had enough room to circulate them and do what he needs to do.
Get them out.
Yeah,
And then people would still be able to park off a car
yes.
to more the retail part of the building.
Yeah, there's
So that
always
would stay the same as what they have today.
some of it's in right away, but we don't see any harm with it. We just assume leave it at this point, and we would just get the radius returns and be done with it. So as we continue farther south, you'll notice Moody's, you know, when we met with them, they had concerns with their large trucks coming in here. And so we didn't have a problem giving a right out here to allow vehicles. It'd also serve as a right in, but this would accommodate their large trucks being able to get out of that lot, and that's what they requested, to be able to get out, and so we were happy we could accommodate that request.
Is that median
wasn't
gonna be a
major-
problem right there?
As I understand their concerns, and this was based off of meetings and talking with them and no follow-up, because honestly, we put the exhibit together to bring forward to the board to get feedback. As I understand it, their concern was vehicles, trucks, large trucks circulating in their lot, and their concern was getting them out there. And so that's what we were trying to accommodate with the median. So as we continue farther south, this is where there's existing sidewalks, so I'll highlight, you know, the sidewalks farther back into the property. We could either reutilize that existing sidewalk, or we'd build a new one, just depends on how much we're tearing it up. But we would propose to just put that sidewalk back because it's there today. There is also some sidewalk down the side streets. Down Hardee's here, there's a sidewalk, and so looking at Hardee's, they have 3 access points today, one here, and then this is a right in, right out today. We had originally proposed getting rid of this access point. After looking at it more critically, we said, well, let's get rid of this one because it's closer to the intersection, and they seem to want the one on the frontage more anyways as a right in, right out. And so this still allows people to circulate, get into the site and circulate it. And so we felt like that was a good compromise for everybody, and not a major problem for the project or the roadway itself. As we continue south, we got Fritz's, this auto repair shop here. They did want this access point, and so we, again, as a right in, right out, it's not a major problem for us to accommodate it. He's got the real estate for us to be able to accommodate vehicles to go in and do whatever parking maneuvers that they have in large trucks. So we were happy that we were able to accommodate that request.
So right in, right out.
Right in, right out, because this is a median.
Do they have an access off of Confederate?
They do have an access off of Confederacy too.
And are we adding a light there? I don't remember there being a light there.
We're adding a light there.
Okay.
Yeah, the developer,
Eventually or right away?
with the project.
Okay.
So as we continue farther south, this is where the sidewalk picks up at the at the southern boundary of the auto store, and then just runs along this entire Franklin Business Park. Again, it's not a major impact to the property. There's a lot of green space. It's right up against the back of the curb, so we assume put the sidewalk in, and this would get us all the infrastructure you need at a signal to have all your PED push buttons to be able to make the crosswalks work and have that connectivity long term. Again, same thing, sidewalk along the whole side of the YMCA and the business park. If we look at the Rolling Hills Community Church, they have this one access point here. They were happy with that. They also have this other access point. Their request to us was they would like the median removed so that they could still utilize that. And our response was, we will absolutely present that, but we're not incorporating it because we felt direction had been given from curb to curb, but we wanted to make you aware that was their request to have that. And what it is the site was designed as this being one way in, one way out. Again, same thing here, one way in, one way out. And they've reconfigured it on Sundays to where they utilize this as one way in and two ways out here, left and right turn. What we told them was we'd recommend actually working with them on their driveway entrance to get a one-way in and two ways out, basically widen their entrance to accommodate two-way traffic. So that was our recommendation to them. But again, they made the request. We wanted to make sure we presented it.
They would maintain, though, a right in, right out to the north, right?
Yes, they
That
would.
would stay there.
It would stay there.
Okay.
So as we continue farther to the south, this is the Market Masters. They have 3 access points onto Beasley today, and then just 1 access point onto Columbia. What we recommended was a right into the facility only, so that the large trucks, the fuel trucks, could get in and refuel. We knew that was an immediate need. I'm sure Paul will articulate this as well. Their big concern was they do have large landscaping trucks that come in and circle the lot, and it's a very difficult turn to make. The building does not have circulation around it like most gas stations do. But ultimately, given its proximity to the intersection, given the fact that there are 3 access points on Beasley, our recommendation was that should remain as a right-in for safety purposes.
Well, now, it says it also has access to Century Court. How does that work?
I think that's a
They meant
typo.
Beasley.
Typo. We meant Beasley.
Okay.
That's a typo.
Okay.
Yeah, Century and Beasley, we get them mixed up.
It's just a hop, skip, and a jump across.
One goes to the jail, the other doesn't.
Yeah, one we want, the other we don't.
Is that a good stopping point?
That's a perfect spot for Paul to take it.
It's Paul Hoppy. I'm the owner of Market Masters, the pure gas station on this corner. Been the owner, day before Thanksgiving next month will be 30 years. I was a young man of 26 at the time. I emailed the members, and I had some response from some of y'all. I appreciate the board's, job of having to pick winners and losers in this process. My emails, was trying to convey to the board, I can't operate as a gasoline station at this location if I don't at least have some exit onto Columbia Avenue direct from the premises. I took some photos. I've got pictures which will explain why. If people are in queue waiting to get gasoline, if they're in queue waiting to get gasoline while they're backed up, it's just an impossibility to do a U-turn on my parking lot, especially if there's people on both sides of the gas pump. When they get ready to leave, they're going to meet. And there's some photos. You can skip page 1 because you've got that on the screen. but the next series of pages will show you exactly what I'm talking about. I took this morning, sitting in my front window, looking out towards Columbia Avenue. On the left of this image 1, you'll see where people are waiting to get gasoline. Well, if somebody is on the other side of these gas pumps, how are they supposed to get out without an access to Columbia Avenue? It's an impossibility. I know, I'm willing to just get a right out only. I understand, we can't have everything we want. I just want to make sure that it's clear to the board cannot operate as a gasoline station at this location anymore without at least an exit onto Columbia Avenue directly from the
So
premises.
right in, right out on Columbia
A right
Avenue.
in, right out, I'm happy with. Otherwise, people will not be able to get off the lot. You're bringing people, funneling them into the gasoline island, and then asking them to reverse on this postage stamp parking lot. And you can see by the photos of what I mean when, during the busy times. I was, right before I came to the meeting, a big dually pickup truck pulled up with an Airstream behind him. He was waiting to get gas, and I'm just sitting there looking, no, if you're at the gas pumps and wanting to exit, you'll just have to wait until he gets done fueling, and just we're gonna create a stalemate. I would even argue, I'd be willing to not have any access point if I wasn't a gasoline station. Yeah, well, I'll use that more for parking and maneuvering, underneath normal circumstances, that this would make sense. But to be able to operate as a gasoline station, which I have for 30 years at this location, it's just an impossibility.
Well, another point you brought up that bears repeating is CJ Solar Solutions.
Yeah, you're sticking
which
him
is-
off in a corner behind me.
He's not gonna, if both of those pumps are tied up, he's not gonna be able to have any customers get
Right,
to his
customers are gonna be
business.
fighting to get over to him, and they're gonna be fighting to get out, and it just, it won't work. I understand for the safety aspect, that you might wanna, limit it to a right out only. I actually think that will help the flow. Instead of somebody sitting there waiting for the traffic to clear, they'll go ahead and exit the property. And so I did a little bit of a diagram. You'll see it in blue when if the city could design something besides me sitting on my computer, I showed it in blue to where some kind of curbing or something in front of the business, to limit the left in and the left out, because otherwise, what's gonna happen is people are gonna, try to, I don't know what those curbs are called that y'all try to direct. Plus, I don't have enough room on my business, for those little Y islands or whatever that try to direct traffic. Plus, I'm afraid people would still try to get across. I don't know, I'm not a designer, I just know that I'm in the gasoline business, I know I can't function without some exit onto Columbia Avenue at that point. And I think the photos are self-explanatory as far as that
Any
goes.
comments about from engineering?
Yeah, we looked at the right in, right out, and we don't have an objection to it. The problem is when you design one, it eats into his property severely and is a bigger damage. It's a big damage, and as
How
far as.
so, Paul?
What's the curb?
Well, you gotta look at the turning radiuses into it, and it starts eating really far into the property. And it starts to take up more real estate and more parking. It's our opinion it really needs to be a full access or just simply a right in. And we're not, if you're really gonna try to direct traffic, you have to have a big pork chop basically sitting right there. And we looked at it, would love to be able to do it. It just was more of a damage to the property than they would probably want it to be. As far as the curbing is concerned, putting a curbing here, this storage is really needed for this left turn into Lumber Drive. And so putting a curbing here is not something that can be done.
If it's on my side of the road, it doesn't limit.
Further north?
Slide,
You'd have to work with the Rolling Hills property probably, right? But could you go further north and have enough room to accommodate a true right in, right out? You might need
We
some help.
discussed this at the
Yeah,
meeting.
need some help from
We
Rolling
discussed,
Hills.
yeah, we
Right.
discussed that at length of trying to do that, and if we could get a roadway, we told them we'd be willing to work with them during construction and facilitate meetings to see if we get a roadway around the building, which would accommodate it, but that would take Rolling Hills agreeing and participating, but we've not gotten to that level of being able to have those conversations.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Well, that might be good if you could go in that direction, but So when you talked about full access, Paul, when you talked about full access, so you'd rather have full access. Well, if you did, it would have less impact on his property, correct? If
The
there was
full access point, yes.
Okay, is there a way that you could have the full access, but when you're pulling out from your property, put a sign up? I mean, people will want to turn left, but if you say right turn only, most of the people will follow that. You're gonna get somebody that's not so smart and try to, and depending on what time of day, what if it's late at night or something, they could easily take a left. Maybe the traffic's not there, and that might be conducive to turning left. Could you put a sign up and say, no left turn?
We hope you turn
right only?
Yeah, or turn left at your own risk. You know, I don't think we make those signs, but couldn't we do something like that to have less impact to his property?
You could put a sign, whether people choose to follow it or not, it's their choice.
Right, I mean, and if you go out there in the middle of the day and you're leaving and you go, there's no way in God's green earth I can take a left, they're gonna go right. Because they're gonna wanna get the heck out of there. So,
I'm
most
more
of
than
the time
happy
you
with
don't have
full
a problem with
access. I was
that.
just trying to, to be a
Play
little
nice.
accommodating. If you could design it, I'd be more than happy, with the right in, right out only.
Yeah, which sounds to me like that would be the thing to do, but if it impacts your property
Well,
so
I
severely.
think the design he was
is
talking
that-
about is what I was talking about, is directing it from my property. I was trying to, I came through Brentwood on the way to the meeting this evening. They've got some curbing out, and I just didn't see.
Oh,
whereas it would, if
push
it's
outs.
just in front of that entrance where it would, Brentwood has
Yeah.
done that in, in some of the new development area. And, it doesn't allow you to turn left or right out of the business. As long as you put it on the west side, which is on,
Your
on
side,
my
yeah.
side, it doesn't hurt
What
people
about
wanting
that,
to get in
Paul?
queue to
Yeah.
turn left into
Yeah.
Rolling Hills,
So-
and it doesn't affect the people that are in queue
queue to
trying to
go
turn left into
left.
O'Reilly's.
Yeah,
So what about that?
But it's gonna impact
We
you not
don't-
queuing into Rolling Hills on Sundays.
No. It's
Yeah,
on
so-
my-
If
when
you're gonna talk, come on
clear of
up and
that.
we'll let you
Yeah, come on.
introduce
You're
yourself.
clear. You can line
Please.
up
Yeah, what's?
just
So-
fine. It wouldn't
What's
affect
the-
that at all.
If you were to put in some type of curbing here, you're
I'm
also
not going
gonna
all the way down there.
impact this, but you'd have to have, basically, you'd have to have it at least 4 or 5 foot wide to accommodate the appropriate signage in the median. But you'd be looking at some type of median right here, then it snake over, and then come down here, which would widen the road slightly, but it does impact your ability to queue vehicles in those storage, and they suddenly start backing into the travel lanes.
Yeah, then you've got a problem.
Then you-
No,
then you have a
That's
problem
just not a good
during the
idea.
peak hours.
No.
In the prime you
Go ahead and introduce yourself if you would, please. Introduce yourself.
I'm John Gifford. I'm the real estate agent for this property, and I'm a member of Rolling Hills.
You're a real estate agent for what property?
I am a real estate agent for Paul's property.
leaseholder.
Oh, okay.
So,
Thank you.
and so my concern is that on Sunday morning, the way you're planning it, we now bring people in on the north end that you've cut off because our traffic is so bad. We're gonna have to build more parking in the future because we're out of parking today. And so, which is a great movement. We are literally parking on Sunday mornings in Husky Lumber because we don't have enough parking at 9:30. So handling queuing, getting into the property is gonna be, so I would encourage you not to cut off the northern access point in because that's how we're bringing people in to the property today. So, and if you do what Paul was talking here about the south, it impacts how things queue on meetings, or like when we're having breakfast with the mayors, getting people in and out of there is huge. Just
Need another entrance, don't you?
yeah, we're working on that, but that's just.
So-
if you like
To have
contribute,
this
yeah.
affects
No,
people
no.
lining up
So
on
that,
Rolling Hills.
hey, that's a question then. If you are working on another entrance off of Columbia Avenue?
Yeah,
If that's correct, I mean, you should be, probably.
Beasley Drive most likely.
Oh, so as I say, then that needs to be considered in all this.
We do have a back out of Beasley today.
In the back.
Okay, well, I'm gonna interrupt right here. I think this is a pretty good stopping point.
what
and
you're
then we'll
gonna
just
do.
resume this at the next work session, and continue on down Columbia Avenue.
Come back and see us.
The magic
I appreciate
wand.
y'all's consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're going to go to item 8, which is the agreement for dedication of sanitary sewer easement with Henpeck Market, Inc., in the amount of $136,400. Anybody question that one? Okay, we'll move on to number 9, which is discussion of the...
Excuse me, we're just doing an easement, not the piece of property, right?
It's
I
easement.
just
Yeah.
used that.
Easement, yeah.
Easement's what it said. Yeah.
Yes.
There've been some other discussion that
Oh, I see.
had gotten to.
Okay, so we're continued discussion of the Franklin Road Corridor Improvements Project, and turn it back over to Mr. Holzen. Do you have any comments?
We're just gonna give you, walk you through, the project itself, and what is under the design today. Paul will give you an update of where we are in terms of right-of-way and other elements, and wanted to use this as a follow-up to the discussion we had at our previous meeting, and trying to see what, if any, other adjustments you might want to make on this project. So, Paul, take it away.
Okay, we prepared a short presentation that William's going to help operate today. But what we're going to do is go over the history of the project, give you an overview of the project, talk a little bit about the schedule, and talk about some of the recent homeowner concerns that have come up, and then look for your direction on how we move forward. So let's see if William can grab the right tab. It would be the BOMA work session 10/9/2018. It's opening. So I can keep talking while this is opening. Basically, the project history, as I understand it, this predates me, so I hope I don't get any of it wrong. But the 1990 Main Street revitalization was obviously a big success in Franklin. And as I understand it, that really drove to, in 2004, 2007, to initiate other economic development, streetscape style projects in the historic downtown area. Those were also paired up with roadways that needed substantial upgrades. And so as we upgraded those utilities, we simply put the street back together in a more aesthetically pleasing manner. 2007 to 2010 is about when I got there, and Franklin Road was under design, and there was a streetscape steering committee that helped give us direction on a lot of the design elements associated with that. The other primary infrastructure or other enhancements that were done with these jobs is the all-new sidewalk, street drainage, updated to the pavement markings, upgraded to the utilities, upgrades to the traffic signals, decorative street lighting, undergrounding all the electric facilities on the corridor, low wall treatments, and this describes all of them, not Franklin Road, but low wall treatments, decorative fencing, signage, et cetera. And so that was the intent on all of the downtown streetscape projects. 2010, with the downturn in the economy, this project was shelved and then re-brought back to life as it got funded and the economy picked back up and funding became available. And so what we did was we essentially picked the project up off the shelf and proceeded to run with the direction that we had of the project and the decisions that had been made. A substantial portion of the project had been designed at that point. And so the roadway project, generally speaking, is from the Harpeth River Bridge to north of Hooper Lane. The roadway, basically we're widening to a 3-lane typical section. You have wide outside lanes, travel lanes, new sidewalk on both sides of the road. We're going to incorporate street trees and landscaping where we can. New decorative street lights, upgrade the old traffic signals that need upgraded. We're going to underground all of the utilities and again upgrade water, sanitary sewer, storm system, and gas while we're in the roadway.
One note on that, the 14-foot lane is a little wider. It's a compromise, essentially. Didn't want to take as much space as would be required to include a bike lane, but it is a little wider lane to have sort of a share the road approach with bikes and vehicles. So it was really sort of a balancing act there, but because if you incorporated bike lanes, you'd have an even wider roadway.
So where are we today? Right now, we're in the process of acquiring easements and getting ready to do the final design associated with the project, and wanted to just share briefly a schedule as to where we feel we're at with being able to deliver the project today if we have the direction to continue to move forward. And so basically there are 33 tracts that we have to acquire property from. We have made 14 offers and we have 8 agreement of sales of those 14 offers. Looking at final design, when you go through the right-of-way acquisition, you're always getting feedback from property owners, and you're trying to accommodate as much of those comments as you possibly can as it relates to landscaping and utilities, et cetera. And so we go back and then update the plans to try to accommodate as many of those requests that we consider to be reasonable as possible. So with the final design, we have some minor utility relocations that we need to do. When you start moving utilities, you need to update your landscaping plan to make sure that we're not planting brand new trees on top of sewer lines or water lines or utilities. We also have to do some coordination with the Franklin Road Bridge, which we're continuing to work on, and then we need to put the final permits into place. We would target to finish that up the same time we complete right-of-way acquisition. And so when we're going through the condemnation process, we're very successful at acquiring right-of-way, but there's always that few that we're not able to successfully acquire. And doing that condemnation process is when we typically will finalize the design so that when right-of-way is acquired, we can then go to a bidding process. So bidding, we think that this is about an 18-month job. We're saying 18 to 24 months because a lot of this depends on the time of year you bid. We're going to need to end construction in a time frame in which we can finalize the topping, the driveways, the paving, et cetera. So the time frame of construction is somewhat dependent on when we actually are able to bid the project. So moving to the next slide, we during the right-of-way acquisition, and this happens sometimes, we held a public meeting. We invited all the property owners where we went over the right-of-way acquisition process with them. When the staking went in the yard, some of the stakings went far up into these people's yards. Some are permanent easements, some were nothing more than temporary construction easements or where we're tying back driveways. And so some of them got concerned and they started talking to each other, and they quickly said, we'd like to come in and meet with staff to talk about the project and better understand it. And we said, okay, we're happy to accommodate that request, and we had a meeting with them to really go over the ins and outs and let them ask questions. They ultimately formed a letter that came from, I don't know how many they're representing, but specifically 2 property owners as I understand it. And their concerns were the overall look and feel of the project. It's too similar to other streetscape projects, and there's a substantial loss of trees. And we're going to cover each one of these individual. The underground utilities, all utilities should be underground, including the private services was their request. The road grading, their concern is they'd like to look at lowering that roadway profile from what it is today so that the roadway is not higher than the elevation of these houses, which is what it is today. And then the roadway width and design, there's concerns about reducing the lanes width from, as Eric stated, there's a 12-foot center lane and 2 outside lanes are 14-foot wide. They'd like us to consider reducing those lane widths to slow traffic. And then also they would, the letter said, eliminating the proposed middle turn lane between Old Liberty Pike and Liberty Pike. And then the last one was they really wanted to have some type of neighborhood committee that helped facilitate some of the design decisions as part of that final design. And this was their initial feedback. I don't know where they're at with it today, but that was their initial feedback. And so we'll cover each one of these items as we proceed. So the overall look and feel, this is an exhibit showing conceptually what it'll look like between the Harpeth River Bridge and Liberty Pike. It's the wider sidewalk, 6.5 feet or 7 feet if you include the curb and gutter. Right up against the back of the curb, the street light's a decorative style teardrop street light like you've seen before in the concrete sidewalk. And the next slide shows what it'll conceptually look like from Liberty Pike back to the project extents back by Hooper Lane. And so this is a different type of street light than we've done before, but this is what was proposed back in 2007-10 time frame. We've not changed it, but this has a 5-foot grass strip and a 5-foot sidewalk there. And the grass strip's really to accommodate signage, street lights, et cetera. And so if we go to the next slide. So we took a shot at looking at the utilities. We get a lot of good feedback from property owners, and they challenge what we've done, and that's a good thing. It helps us lead to a better design. And so we take that feedback and then sit down and try to figure out what we can do. And their big concern, again, was losing some of the trees. And so we took a really hard look at the utility plan as to, okay, if we were to reduce the roadway width, if we were to try to redesign the utilities, how many trees could we actually save? What do we think is reasonable? And so what we came up with was the red trees, as shown here, are trees that we believe just they're going to have to go to accommodate the utilities. The green trees are trees that we can save. The orange trees are, if we were to spend the effort and time trying to redesign it, we might be able to save them. And I stress might because you don't really know until you get into the design. And so really once you start hitting that root structure, a lot of times we will just pay the property owner for the tree because chances are 2-3 years down the road it's going to die and they're going to want us to remove it then. And so we assume just pay them up front if they want us to keep it, and then it's up to them to try to remove it at a later date.
So the red dots are trees that are gonna be gone regardless of design.
Right.
Green dots are trees that are gonna stay regardless of design, and the orangish ones are ones that could be preserved if we're able to narrow through some redesign.
Correct. So if we go to the next slide, this shows some more orange trees. The property that has the orange trees, we've already settled with that tract. They've already agreed. We've compensated, or we're preparing to compensate them for those trees if we're given the notice, the proceed with construction direction from the board. If we go to the next slide, you can see there's a few more trees there that we might, again, stress, might be able to save with a big redesign. So I do want to touch on one thing, a redesign of changing the roadway typical section. That's a big redesign. It'll cost to what I would consider to be a substantial sum of money to re-engineer everything. And it would take us about a year probably to take a step back and redesign. You're basically starting from scratch. All you have is a survey. Redesigning, that's about a year is my estimate. Redesigning the utilities substantially would take us around 6 months. So I really want you to understand if we change direction and get that direction, that's kind of the time frame or commitment that it would take. So if we go to the next slide, what we're going to do is there was some confusion over the utilities, so we've prepared some exhibits so that to the best of our ability we could try to show you or help you vision what the utilities look like in the roadway and where that overhead electric will remain. And so I'm going to walk you through this, and so I'm going to try to use my pointer. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt. So this is a rendering of Franklin Road. You got the center turn lane and then the outside 2 wide lanes. You can see the sidewalk here. The blue line here is an existing 12-inch water main. It feeds our tank. It helps backfeed into the downtown area. We also are running a smaller distribution loop through the roadway in the pavement to serve the southern properties. And a lot of that has to do with trying to avoid that historic wall, boring underneath it, digging under that historic wall. We're trying to avoid as much of that as possible. You also have the red lines here, and I know it's hard to see, but those are communication or electrical duct banks. And so you have a major primary underground electrical duct bank here. You have a major AT&T duct bank, and when I say major duct bank, basically it's concrete encased conduit, and it's a vertical wall of concrete in your roadway, which is very difficult to work around. But given the limited availability, the decision was made a long time ago that we're going to try to put those in the roadway. So in this area, there's very little room to maneuver in that roadway. You also have along your curb and gutter your storm drainage. Outside of that, you got your street lights, and then outside of that, you got your gas line. We're having to redo Atmos Gas's main feed into the city through here too. So what's shown here in highlighted yellow red is where it'll remain overhead. So this underground electrical system runs up here to some type of a transformer, and then we intercept the existing underground line. There's an existing communication overhead system that runs down the driveway. We would simply get outside of that right of way, come up a pole, and then continue that overhead. So right here is a proposed pole that would then run overhead with the existing communication. So we had to draw a line to stop the scope somewhere on the project, and that's generally what we've done on all these tracks, but I'm going to walk you again through each one of those. So for BGA, existing overhead utilities come to this point. We would run the underground electric point to here, come up a pole, and then go into the facility overhead like it is served today. They have a contract with Middle Tennessee Electric to provide lighting, so they're served directly off of the main circuit that we're undergrounding. So again, we would come off the main circuit, underground to a pole, go up that pole, and then go overhead to serve their parking lot lights. That is the way it is today. So going to the next slide. So as we get into these properties here, you'll see on the, sorry, I've gotten a little bit lost here. Let's move on. Okay, so right here, again, we're undergrounding the electric through here, but when you get onto this side street, we come up a pole right here on Old Liberty Pike, and we run overhead. This property here has an existing overhead service, so it would remain overhead off of the side street. These properties here being served directly off of that, some of these are already underground today. We would just reconnect in and provide that underground feedback. So this is where some of that confusion came in last time that I want to clear up, is there are these side overhead utilities that serve multiple lots. And this is no different than the way it was on Hillsborough Road. If there was a side system serving multiple lots, we simply came off of the right-of-way, went up a pole to the existing pole and allowed it to serve the houses. So you can see here there would be an existing pole that we would come up overhead to serve these properties, and same thing down here, would come down to a pole and then serve these properties. Now, as I understand it, when we get into right-of-way negotiations, if they said, hey, we want you to take that underground to the pole, we'd be happy to take it to the pole typically and move that pole to where the two property owners could agree, if they would agree. But ultimately, what we did on Hillsborough and recommend continuing to do is go up that pole and overhead. So if we have to underground the service to the property, the private service, that means we have to go into their house, we have to inspect their panel, we may have to upgrade their panel, we may have to paint their house, we may have to move their panel, we may have to re-drywall, we may have to redo roofs. When we take down the overhead weatherhead on Hillsborough Road, we would patch roofs, we couldn't match shingles, and we're gonna have to do some of that here because there's no choice. But on these properties served off of these poles, our recommendation again is go overhead, and the money that we're paying for the right-of-way or whatever funding they have, that would be a private issue that they could then choose to underground from that point. But again, as we've done before, we're happy to try to take it to this pole underground, assuming mutual property owners could agree on that approach. So moving on to the, over here on this street, this is Miles Manor, I believe, right, William? Going underground to an existing pole system. It's served off of the overhead, so it would remain overhead to the side street. The communications would run to a pole right here. There's a pole system here that's separate. It's like your Comcast and AT&T. So that pole system then would remain on the side street and then would still tie in aerially here. So moving on to the next slide. Again, these properties here, there's a overhead pole. We would run underground to that pole, go aerially from there back to serve these properties, which is the way it is today. I think it goes underground to one of those. These properties up here, which is the old Cuts and Blessings, I believe, this is actually backfed through here. So they're not off of this main road, they're backfed, and so that would all remain overhead because it's not on that main circuit that we're working on underground. Looking at Harlansdale, same thing with our own city property. We would run it underground to a pole, and then there's this existing overhead electric that runs through our park. We would just go up that pole and then continue that overhead electric. Moving on to the next slide. This is towards the end of the project. Down here you have this existing overhead electric that would all remain. It's not fed off of this main circuit, so we're not having to come back up. What we're doing with this small area off of Hooper Lane, it runs to a pole here, then it goes overhead as it does today down Hooper Lane. And to feed these homes, what we're doing is we're still working on the design. It's either going to have to cross aerially. It's either going to have to go all aerial over to here to a pole and then serve these houses, or if we can, we're going to take it underground to a pole, come up a pole back here to serve these properties. And that's really a Middle Tennessee Electric decision that we're still trying to figure that part of it out. And so either way, we would need to acquire that easement, but I hope that clears up the overhead undergrounding. And essentially, the side roads or side systems, we're just simply coming back up a pole and going overhead through those systems to avoid having to go into every single house and rewire and move panels and redo roofing. And that's how we did it on Hillsborough Road. So we're also trying to be consistent as well. Next item about the roadway grading. This is just a quick exhibit of of the changing of the elevation, it shows an existing and proposed profile. They match identical. I'm just gonna leave it at that. There are slight modifications, a little bit up, a little bit down, to try to meet engineering curves. But again, this center line profile is the existing and proposed elevation of the road, and it's not changing at all except for a few inches here and there throughout the design. Next one is the overall roadway width and design. There were questions about the width, and Eric touched on it again. We wanted to show you a typical section, 12-foot lanes, 14-foot wide outside lanes to accommodate the bike and peds. It would not be striped as a bike lane. It would just be a wider lane to accommodate them and signed as a bike route. So we also looked at the crash history. This is a very brief look. It would take a lot of time for us to really analyze the crash history, but William went ahead and looked at the 2017 data, specifically targeting our project limits. We have 45 total crashes. 24 of those rear-end crashes are located within the existing two-lane sections. There's two-lane sections out there today. 17 of the rear-end crashes are located at intersections or at the three-lane section, and those are not avoidable. What we're really trying to do with the three-lane section is keep continuous flow traffic, but also accommodate and give people making left turns in their driveways the ability to go sit in a storage lane and not get rear-ended. And those are the crashes that the third lane really provides a benefit for. The last one is we had 3 roadway departure crashes. There's not much you can do to fix those, and 1 right angle crash. So that sums up why the 12-foot center turn lane is important to us as engineers to improve the safety of it. That really concludes it. I just want to reiterate that design changes is a substantial, major design changes is a substantial delay. Re-engineering the roadway width, again, is about a year, and changing out the utilities, major utility redesign, not minor, major utility design is about a 6-month delay, and again, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Would you like citizens to make comments first, or would you like? Okay. First is Paul Levowitz. Paul is here representing, please come up here.
I'm gonna let DJ talk first if you don't mind. I'm gonna be real short
DJ
and sweet. I'm
Davis.
just handing out handouts that he's gonna refer to, so I don't want.
You have 2 minutes.
I will take even less than that. Nice to see you again. I'm DJ Davis. I live at 219 Franklin Road, and I'm here on behalf of over 60% of the residents. We've now signed a petition, because I know there's a question as to whether it was just us. There are more. So I'm going to, we made copies, so each person can have one. And that was all I needed to say. So now I'm going to let Paul speak.
Okay, and Paul, if you would clarify who you're speaking for and representing, since you're the spokesperson, and I'm giving you 8 minutes.
Understand. I'm Paul Lebovitz. I live at 102 Winslow Road. It's the corner of Franklin Road and Liberty Pike, and I'm representing a majority of the homeowners on Franklin Road and in our Miles Manor neighborhood. All of them have been contacted, and I think they've got a signature list that shows how many have said we'd like to talk to y'all about this project. There's no doubt the Franklin Road streetscape is large and important. The projected cost is several $1 million. It includes disappearance of electric wires, communication cables are going to go underground. There's utility improvements and new sidewalks for pedestrians. It's hard to imagine how many millions those houses in our neighborhood are worth now. I have to tell you, when I moved in 38 years ago, my mom walked in our house and she said, "This is a dump, why'd you buy it?" Well, it's been fortunate for me, the whole neighborhood has come up and it's a real valuable place. But it's not so much that all that real estate adds up. We're the gateway, I found out, to Franklin, and the city reiterates that too. Hillsborough Road project led up to the edge of town, but Franklin Road leads right into downtown. We're the first thing you see, and you drive right into town, and there's going to be the new hotels and all those things that are coming up. We are the welcome mat for everything that you get into downtown. And it's a great downtown. I love going to Merides for mint chocolate brownies. One of the things that's unique about this streetscape, I believe we're the only one outside of Main Street that's in the Community Historic District. So we want the project to be in tune with that historic district. We want the best design, and I think that our engineers and our other staff are capable of that. There's been a lot learned over the last 15 years with all these projects, and we hope all these things are incorporated into this project. We're concerned to live in a great project. All of our neighbors are, and that our staff will produce a great project as well. We're not real interested in postponing it, and we're more about contributing to the project's long-term success. We're not putting ourselves out as engineers or know-it-alls, and we want to just ask that there's several things might happen. We saw the project on Hillsborough Road, and there's a lot of new boxes for the underground electric, the green boxes. So we're wondering if you could use vaults instead. That hasn't been real common, but it's funny, as I walked in here today, behind our parking garage is a telephone vault underground. So they're around. It's between the garage and Pull Tight. We'd like to see if there'd be some of these more mature trees that are not cut down. I think on a random walk, I marked some things the other day looking where the easement is, that it looked like it could be several hundred caliper inches of trees by the time it's over. We don't know for sure. I didn't know the exact width of the sidewalks, but certainly 5 foot is about all that's needed. We would like to, and anything that could reduce that entire roadway so that the trees aren't, we get fewer trees lost, we'd appreciate it. So it may be if the roadway design's stuck, maybe it's something we can do with utilities. We're leaving that to the engineers. We would like to see if, I realize it's a big deal to change the roadway, but perhaps it could be narrowed. We'd also, one of the comments that we've talked about is downtown is brightly lit and Hillsborough Road is well lit. We'd like to see that perhaps some of the lighting be downgraded. That may sound unusual, but older areas of town typically aren't lit so you can read a book out on the street. Maybe that's either that's lower wattage or fewer light posts. There's going to be a center turn lane, and there should be a picture somewhere on you that looks like this. And we thought, well, if it's an historic area, what about using something like this for the center turn lane? That's actually stamped asphalt. I haven't seen it out here in Franklin, but it's used in Nashville. There's a section of Nolensville Road that's been used for stamped asphalt, so it doesn't look like that left turn lane. I mean, the center turn lane, I know it's important. I know why you want to have it, but there's only about 12 houses right there. So there's going to be an empty black strip there for quite some time, empty every day. So I thought maybe we could incorporate something like that. We would like to ask that if perhaps we realize this is a short review, that perhaps we can sit with the engineering staff and their conference room and maybe just run through some of these, and there's probably a few other ideas, and see if they might be incorporated in the final design. So I appreciate your time today. I would ask, if you came here, you're a Franklin Road resident, or you live off Franklin Road, would you put your hand up so they know how many people are here? All right. Thank you very much.
And you're speaking for all of them, Paul?
I'm speaking for, I don't know everybody in the rooms, but I'm speaking for probably the majority of those that are here. And then I believe you had a signing sheet, and they were all versed on the comments that I made. Yes.
Alderman Berger.
I would say, Paul, we have, Joe's here, we have that tool, we have that equipment for stamped asphalt. We do, we could do that here, and we already
Okay.
have that. And I like that idea, I think that would be a great idea to put that in the middle instead of having just a plain strip. You said this is a gateway to Franklin, I really think it's important how this looks. So I would support that, I think that's a great idea, but I cringed when you said narrow the road. I'm like, no. That is a gateway to Franklin, and I just don't see how you want to narrow that road at all. And it still can be lovely, and it can also be extremely walkable. It can be safe and everything with our sidewalks, the curb, all the features that we're gonna put with it. So I'd be very cautious. I would not support narrowing the road at all. But I think that all these other elements that the engineer team has worked into this, I think lends itself to being an extremely attractive road and inviting, but also number one issue, and I think Margaret's beat this for years, is the safety. And that's what we have to really do. But I like some of your ideas, and thank you. Like asphalt.
I failed to call Blair Adamson up so if you don't mind, I'm
And
gonna.
while they're
Yeah,
coming
he's
up.
gonna be after me. It's okay.
And here's the other, here's one other comment I'll make.
Yes.
I think Margaret's getting calls right now on the 5-foot sidewalk we did over on 96 on Murfreesboro Road. They want something wider, and, so I'm not gonna support a 5-foot sidewalk. I'll support something wider than that going in now, if that's what engineering is recommending. I mean, are we not? Are you getting? Okay, so.
See,
so-
I have not gotten any calls about making the sidewalk on 96 East wider. Not one.
Well,
I've gotten two, and it's not even my ward.
Well, you may have more residents in that area of town. We only have about 12 houses between Old Liberty Pike and Liberty Pike. And, you know, even
But
though,
the sidewalk is not is not only for more than 12 residents. The sidewalk
But there's
is
another-
for everyone to use.
yeah, I understand
Okay.
that, but we don't have the dense, there's a lot more residences in that area of town than where we are.
With all the development, Jameson Station and those apartments out there.
Harleysdale.
Listen, and they've already put $500,000 in for sidewalks, so they can get to town. And, you know, I was against the 5-foot sidewalks out here. I thought they should have been 10 feet. The ones in front of my house are at least 8 feet, and that's fine. But a 5-foot sidewalk for the traffic that you're gonna get going to Harlansdale and the factory, what I see every day, 5 feet will not hold it.
One was 5 foot and one was 7 foot.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Two sidewalks, one 5 foot and one 7 foot.
The 7-foot one was really more urbanized up against the back of the gutter, so you'll have streetlights
Yeah.
in those sidewalks as well.
Is it okay if we go ahead and ask Blair Adamson to come up and give you a couple of minutes, or do you still want to speak?
Mr. Mayor, I'll give my time for a good discussion here. You know, it's just, you know, Paul and his team's been really kind and given us a lot of their time, and I think if we could just continue working with them, these are small adjustments that we're asking for in the petition that you see. And so, you know, I'll just give my time because the design isn't final. We can get these small changes in. We can have a safer road, a better project. We just need to work a little bit tighter together. We just need your encouragement to do it. So, be helpful if we just got that out of this meeting today.
I think the one thing we need guidance on, though, is the ability to continue to work towards bidding this in late spring, summer of next year. You know, there are things we can continue to work on, but they won't be things that move gas lines into the roadway and those sorts of things. That's, I think, what we need to kind of differentiate what may be smaller adjustments and what might be more significant redesign components. Because we don't want to buy right away and then need to alter it because we changed the design significantly. So that's kind of the crossroads we're at in this discussion.
Well, I would,
Vice Mayor, I'll recognize you.
thank you. I forgot to put my hand up. I would certainly urge you to go forward with this. And if there are things that would not prolong the development of it, and you can work it out, fine. But as I told Blair a while ago, I don't want to see anything that's going to prolong this. 1 hour. It needs to go on, because these people have, how many times did the people from Miles Manor come in, I don't know the name of that new street out there, but they begged us to go with this. You know, they begged that we not get their spouses run over and get this done. So I would urge you to go forward with it. That would be my vote.
Other comments? Alderman McClendon.
The petition asks for a meeting. I would encourage staff to have that meeting so that, because with all due respect to some of the petitioners, I'm not sure that passing an ordinance requiring vaults for all underground utilities is a small thing. But I don't know that. So I would encourage staff to have the meeting with the residents and to come out of that meeting with an understanding to report back to us, what would the delay and cost be to make the requested change, if any? What would the, and I know you've said generically 6 months if this and a year if that, but that stamping, for example, that's probably not a delay. It may not even be a cost change. It might, I don't know. But I would like to know, I mean, some of these I find are not likely to fall in the category of small, meaning no delay and no cost. But I don't know that. So I don't want to simply say, respectfully differ with Alderman Martin, I'm not committed to a timeline just because we have one. I'm committed to a project that is the best we can do, which balances the needs of the community against the needs of the people who are most directly affected by it. That said, you know, some of these may just be, we're gonna have to just say, look, that's a $5 million ask, and we're not about to put $5 million in it, or that is a year-long redesign, and then we can make the policy choice of whether we're willing to do that. But I can't look at this list and know which of these do or don't trigger a year, do or don't trigger 6 months, and do or don't trigger substantial additional expense. So I would encourage you to have the meeting and then come out of that meeting with, here's what they asked for, we looked at it, and we do think that triggers a delay of. Or we can do that at an additional cost of $10,000, no delay. Okay, because I just don't know. I mean, like the lighting levels should be lower and less intrusive. Well, that sounds like no delay, no cost, but there may be a policy reason why you would recommend against it. And that's fine. Then we can make a policy decision. But, you know, something like road elevation might, to finish floor elevation of the homes, that may be the year and $5 million. I don't know. I'd just like to have, for staff to have the meeting and then tell me of the specific line items that are requested by the residents, which of those trigger delays and costs, and which of them are merely either no cost, no delay, or basically a policy decision that with or without cost and delay.
Alderman Blanton.
First of all, Paul, there are so many gateways I get confused, but I agree this is one of them. So there's a gateway on Hillsborough Road. There's a gateway all the way at Moore's Lane. So I also just want to say it's interesting, these two items back to back. We're sitting here working diligently with the property owners of Columbia Avenue to make sure we get that project right. And I find it interesting, Franklin Road has been on the plans probably not in an active status quite as long, but it's interesting how we get so far down the road and then all of a sudden people get engaged and then we have to go back down the road to go forward again. And that's not necessarily anybody's fault sitting out here, but it's confusing to me how we prioritized it. We made it one of our top 10 and now we're getting dug down into it, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say upheaval, but there's like serious communication. So I do want to make sure that you guys feel like we've vetted this in your interests. And I do agree with that, but, and what Dana said was a really good point, because I think this board is really good about trying to work with our citizens, and that includes whether you're a resident or you're a business owner. So I think, for me, it's a point of frustration of like, oh my gosh, how did you just now find out about this? You know, we've been talking about this for a long time. And I'm not placing blame at your feet, but you have to understand, in Margaret's situation, when she's the ward alderman, she's going, really?
The other half's me.
Right, okay, and the other half. So my point, and I will close this up in a nice little bow, is you deserve the same consideration we gave the people prior to you on the agenda. But I do think it's something that we need to move forward, because traffic accidents or whatever, you guys know, you see people trying to navigate that road. without the aid of a sidewalk, so.
Anybody else? Alderman Barnhill.
Let's go kind of generically. If any of these issues delays the project much or increases the cost a great deal, probably will have a difficult time getting me to support that. We've been dealing with this now for years. Ernie Bacon's sitting out there right now, years. Ernie Bacon did the streetscape on this in 2005 or 6 or 7. And, you know, to get to this point right here and then suddenly have whatever we're having, and you know, I just think, I personally think that the historical markers at Miles Manor and Winslow Road, whatever it is, they could probably be preserved. That's not a particularly big deal, more than likely. But some of these other things are huge re-engineering, redesign, and a whole lot of delay. Now, if you want to meet and come back on any of these specific and say 6-month delay, $500,000 here, whatever, and we can do a line item here and scratch them off for you if you want to. But if it's much of a delay or much of a cost increase over what we've done, it's a beautification project as much as anything, so it's not necessarily, my favorite comment, it's not going to move a lot of traffic. It's not something that's 5 lanes going in and out of the city. So I would I suggest that you meet, but that's what we said 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, and we're still meeting, and we're still meeting, and we're still meeting. This thing could, you know, we might still be meeting next time, in January or February, whatever it is. I'd like to see us move forward on it, and you can scratch off some of those things right there, because
As far as I'm concerned, the next time I see this, it would be fine with me if it's on a voting session, and there are options 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and anyone that feels so motivated can move to adopt option 1. Then we'll just go through it. And I mean, I don't necessarily need the whole, maybe the end
Right.
result of the meeting is that the constituents say, well, never mind then. Or, great, we all agree, fine, we'll just throw that in, I don't know. But I'm, with the outcome of that meeting should be something I can vote on. I don't want to keep having meetings about meetings.
Anybody else?
Well, let us review that. I've not seen that list, so I'll be glad to work with Paul on that. And
Have you got a copy?
I don't have one, but we can
You
make
can have-
copies,
you
that's
can
fine. And we'll see what we can do between now and the next time you meet, or what we can do. We're always glad to meet with residents and walk through considerations and give you a sense of the impact.
Whenever you were
and-
going to put it on for us to vote, put it on then.
Yeah.
But
so-
have that meeting before that.
Right. So we
Okay.
will do
Please.
that review.
We'll see you at 7 o'clock.
all right.